I am very happy to be here in Thunder Bay tonight and to be talking about my research, which is really my passion.
It started off, this project started off a long time ago. In fact, I have to go back to 1995, I believe, when I was sitting in my professor's office as an adult student. I was doing my second BA after having my first child, and I couldn't understand why the students in class, these 18-year-olds, just weren't responsive. Like, what's going on? I was supremely excited of being in this classroom. And so I was looking for a research project that would move me even more so. And this sociolinguist, you probably know her, she's Professor Jana Witzmüller-Zocco. She said, Sonia, don't you have any letters at home you can do a linguistic analysis of? And I said, yes, of course. My father has kept them and shown them to me like over the years, and I never paid attention to them. And so what did I do? I paid attention to those letters. So I went back home and dug them up and inquired further. So I did the MA at McGill, and I did on basically 19 letters, a linguistic analysis of 19 letters. And they were mostly letters written from Italians writing to their loved ones here in Canada. So the inverse of what the literature has been looking at, which is really immigrant letters written by the immigrants themselves. And so in this study, I look at the irregularities in the language because they're written by working class, newly literate people, and what this tells us as a popular text. How did these authors make do of absence in their letters? What do their letters tell us about living with absence, living with separation from an emotional perspective? In 1948, 2 years after Clara and Mauricio began courting, Clara and her mother left their hometown of Ampezzo Carnico. Prior to her departure, she and Maurizio had written to each other every day between Venice and her hometown of Ampezzo in order to remain connected, in synchrony with each other. And they would then arrange to meet every month or so. And immediately after arriving in Montreal, Clara began to make arrangements in earnest for Mauricio to join her in Canada. Finally, after 9 months of separation, in the summer of 1949, Mauricio joined Clara, and they married several months later. So one of the ways that they created this presence through absence, or made do of the absence through presence, was simply even just thinking of the lover. That is, voicing in their letters the expression that they were thinking of their lovers, and describing the emotional impact of receiving correspondence. This created intense reassurances about a lover's presence and the need to endure the relationship at a distance. So, upon receiving 2 letters from Mauricio, for instance, Clara Renzi wrote, I reread your last 2 letters. In them, I find so much true love, so much affection, so much comfort for me in these words that you cannot imagine. They bring me everything I need to continue to love, to hope. These people, these individuals had this emotional creativity, this creative imagination, and this forthrightfulness, if you like, to keep writing, and to this consciousness of what was going on within them. We can also witness in these letters how romantic love projected enormous powers, both to inspire and empower lovers living apart. Because of absence, these authors felt intensely compelled to remain in conversation with each other. And so, for instance, you hear Clara when she writes to Mauricio November 14, 1948, you can't imagine how comforted I am to read your letters and how much happiness they bring to me. For this I ask you, I beg you, to write to me once a week punctually. I'll try to do the same so that neither of us needs to suffer. One line, one short line is all we need. to keep hoping and to keep staying in synchrony, to stay in conversation, to stay connected. So he writes, last night, for the first time, I saw a comet. I went outside onto the terrace, and there, in the midst of thousands of stars with its luminescent tail, was a comet. So that when we'll be old, we'll be able to tell our children, or even our grandchildren. Don't you think so? He writes to Esther. When our children will ask us, Mama, did you ever see a comet? What is it like? To which you will say, go to Papa. He saw one once. Ask him to tell you all about it. And so I, with all the patience in the world, now, if you think of gender, I mean, it's quite amusing in some way. But he says this seriously, with all the patience in the world, will explain to them that one day, in the distant past of 1957, I went to the terrace, and so on and so on. So he plays with the notion of time as he struggles endlessly to compress these distances and transform her absence into a presence that he can manage. And so he writes in another quote, Giordano, before I close, I want to tell you that I saw our star tonight, and it seemed to be saying to me, Esther sends you many kisses and is always thinking of you. To which I answered, dearest little star, bring many, many kisses to my love. Tell her that I will love her for all of my life. Till tomorrow, my dearest love. So it's not just that he's invoking the stars and the heavens, but he's writing this to her. There's more to it than, a poet writing it down. It's yes, of course it's poetic, and of course there's a literature on that he draws from in Italian literature, but he applies it in his letter to his love, though. To me, that has a consciousness and a pragmaticism at the same time that is, anyway, quite remarkable.